Greetings, good storytellers. I'm not sure whether this is an artful narrative video or if this is just a Jack video. I guess time will tell. I was about to get in bed, my pajamas on, glasses off, but I just decided I wanted to at least try making a video. Now, if you're tuned into the Star Wars fandom, then you may have noticed that there's currently a controversy going around where the YouTuber whose YouTube channel is Star Wars Theory, he was moved to tears by the finale of The Mandalorian, and for some reason one of the studio executives at Lucasfilm chose to mock him for this in a tweet. Now, I do not, since it is in a tweet, there's no way that I can pretend to understand how this, what the meaning behind this was, or how it was intended to be received. If it was just throwing out a teasing statement, or if it was, expressing a belief held by this person. But either way, what it's done is it's, brung up the old gender stereotype that it's not manly to cry, that men should not, they should be stoic and not display such emotions. And so I've been thinking a lot about gender stereotypes, and I toyed with trying to make a video on it, but I try to only make positive videos as much as possible. And I really can't find a lot positive in gender stereotypes except their subversion. Because gender is far too fluid and fantastic a thing for there to be a set, you identify as this, so you should act this way. That feels like such a relic of a bygone era. And, the world is too complex for there to be these simple parameters of what one gender should and should not do, what is or is not manly or womanly, or things like that. And so I consider making a video on it, but it's just, I don't see how I could make that positive. There's just, as ridiculous as some of these stereotypes about men are, there's vastly more absurd and hurtful ones about women and LGBTQ plus us individuals, and I'd really need to have my argument dialed in to find a way to balance lightly touching on what's bad and then celebrating how we're making steps in finally shaking off some of these archaic ideas, because those are two ways in which you can make things better. Recognize that things still need to get better so that you can get to work on that, but also celebrate that things are moving in the right direction, albeit sometimes much slower than we'd prefer. And this specific gender stereotype idea is something that I wasn't even exposed to because of the way that I was raised. Now, in many ways, my dad is sort of the ideal manly man of the 50s. He's excellent mechanic, knows all about cars, excellent handyman, can fix anything around their house, has built houses, all these different things. He's very strong, very charismatic, and just a man of action, that, as my mom tells it. Once when they were in a parking lot, they saw smoke and a little bit of flames coming from underneath someone's hood. Their engine was on fire, and without a second thought, my dad just grabs the fire extinguisher out of the back of his car, goes over, puts the fire out, and afterwards says, well, I'm not going to just sit by and let their car catch fire or explode or something. It's like, just go put out the fire out. But in all those ways that he was that, classic sort of 50s ideal of a man, he also was very in touch with his emotions. And I have fond memories, and still to this day, many times when we watch movies together, if it is a especially touching movie, he will be moved to tears. And so I grew up believing that the manliest, example that something that would make someone the manliest is being that in touch with their emotions, that being unafraid to be moved to tears by something. And it wasn't until I grew older that I realized that, wow, that is the stereotype is actually quite the opposite. But so that's what I want to talk about instead with this video, is stories that move us to tears. Because as we talked about in the kick the dog / kill the dog trope, we as writers want to evoke emotion from people, and we have tools to do that in expedient ways as possible. And it's relatively easy to make people feel sad, to make them feel horrified or scared or disgusted. But to make someone feel so moved to joy that they actually shed tears, that's much harder to do. And so it takes a truly masterful storyteller to do that, which is why this Lucasfilm executive is so foolish to have chosen to take a reaction that someone had to a product that this person is in some way connected to by working at that company, and rather than seeing this as a glowing, we did something so beautiful that it's moving people to tears, instead go, look at this, look at this foolish fanboy crying over this silly bit of fantasy. But so that's what we'll look at here for the rest of this video, is such masterful stories as that can evoke these emotions, and how, what aspects of sorry, words are not coming as easily since it's so late and I haven't slept. I'll sleep after I finish this video, and I'll watch it when I wake up and see if it looks like it's something that's worth editing. Uploading. But we're going to look at the different ways that you can approach crafting a scene in such a way to evoke such beautiful emotions. Now, I really should do this one last, because this is the one that's most... I'll do it last, because it's the one that I feel so strongly about. I always find it fascinating the way in which stories can touch us emotionally in this regard, because the example that I always go to is the end of Apollo 13, where there's that long pause that I think it's like, it's 2 minutes in which the astronauts will be re-entering the atmosphere, and they won't be able to communicate, and so they're waiting to everyone on mission control and everyone listening at home is waiting to see did they burn up in the atmosphere? Did they die? Did they get their trajectory right? And the tension that is held there as it goes past the 2 minute mark, and we think, oh no, are they dead? And then this huge just release of joy that comes when and get a communication from them that yes, they're alive, everything's fine. And I find this such a wonderful example of the willing suspension of disbelief and the storyteller's craft. Because not only are you looking at something that, these are actors on a screen in portraying these things, and so obviously they're not going to die, but their characters might. Remove it even further away from that. They're not playing fictional characters. The writers don't have leeway here. They're playing real life people, and you've learned probably in school or from a variety of different sources how the Apollo mission ended, and you know that they didn't die. So why should there be any tension? Why should there be that release and that feeling of joy when you see that they survived? It doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't need to make sense, because it is that example of the story being so well crafted, the tension being so well implemented, and the characters being so brilliantly acted that you just feel this great release of the tension and this great wave of joy when you see that they live, that they are alive and well. But the prime example for something that always brings me to tears, and that is mainly because it's something true that my dad has a connection to, and so I have a connection to it through him, is the wonderful movie Field of Dreams. Now, in that movie, right at the end there's such a great scene where Ray Kinsella is, saying, "Oh, come on! I built this cornfield, and never wants to ask what's in it for me. And so now I'm asking, what's in it for me?" And it's revealed to him that all the all the ghosts of these legendary baseball players and Shoeless Joe Jackson that came there to play in his cornfield, in the baseball field that he built in his cornfield, that among them was one other slightly less famous but significantly, but certainly no less important baseball player, and that's Ray's dad. That his dad standing there in spirit, looking like he did in his prime. And such a beautiful moment there when I have the quote here so I can get it exactly right. When the dad asks, he looks around and says, "Is this heaven?" And Ray says, "No, it's Iowa." And then Dad goes, "Iowa. Could have sworn this was heaven." And then Ray sort of pauses for a moment, and then he asks, "Is there a heaven?" And without even batting an eye, the dad answers, "Oh yeah. It's the place where dreams come true." And Ray looks around and says, "Maybe this is heaven." And then they finally get to throw the ball around and have a catch. And there's such a beautiful scene. And it plays on emotions on so many different levels. One is the Ray finally getting to reconnect with his dad, and after having parted, poorly, and just how magical that is to think that get to reconnect with someone that you've lost. How beautiful that is. And it's just such a wonderful scene, so perfectly done. And the final example that I will use, since at least it has something that's slightly more actionable and sort of in the theory in keeping with the theme that this video started. I found that some of the other types of movies that bring me to tears are movies like Moana or The Greatest Showman, because in those there are moments with the I Am Moana song after Moana talks with the spirit of her grandmother, or the This Is Me song in The Greatest Showman, and that those, the reason that those evoke that emotion in me is that by talking about people who are damaged, and depicting that in a way that isn't a bad thing, that you can not just come back from that, not just rise above that, but actually fly with that. And so lines like in the Moana song, the scars can heal and reveal just where you are, or just who you are. And in the This Is Me, I'm brave, I'm bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me, that songs like that and scenes like that in movies make me cry because they make me feel seen. They acknowledge emotions and struggles that I'm going through, and by seeing it up there, by seeing other characters going through this, it makes me feel less lonely and less that this is something that I have to handle alone, and that this is something uniquely wrong with me. It is a beautiful thing, and that is why I love stories that show those other perspectives, and especially stories with diversity and with themes like that, because just everyone should be able to feel seen, should be able to feel understood. And so many stereotypes seem designed to make people, or not designed, but nowadays seem to exist to make people feel ignored and misrepresented, and just create this phony caricature of what someone is, as opposed to respecting the beauty of the person that's really there. And so I love movies like that, and that connecting scenes that connect with struggles that people have like that. And I guess there's one other example I want to add. I still, this might be more of a Jack Fulmer video, because I don't know again how much actionable advice there is here for writers, but just one of the other things that for some reason makes me cry is certain scenes in Doctor Who, and I know exactly why. Like the Day of the Doctor movie, when he's there, when Matt Smith and David Tennant are there with the War Doctor, John Hurt, and they're about to press the button on the device that's just going to destroy all the Daleks, but also destroy the Time Lords and all the children, all the innocents involved. And also similarly, toward the end of I believe it's called the Silence in the Library, where it looks like the Doctor has failed, and River Song has died to sacrifice herself to save them. And the reason that these moments evoke such emotion is that Doctor Who as a series, despite all the Doctor's power, he has many tragedies. He is someone whose life is not easy, and so he has come to that moment many times before, where he's realized that he cannot get the ideal happy ending or the victory that he wants, and so he has to find the lesser evil or the greater good, and be happy, or not at least be happy, but find a way to live with that. And the show understands this, and so it plays both those moments that exact same way. And so you feel yourself, you start to gear up with, like, yes, I can be okay with this. It'll be all right. But allowing the Doctor then to have those moments of rare audacity, then he goes, no. In the Day of the Doctor, it's, no, I've thought about this and I've changed my mind. There's a different way. There's a different way that we can do this. And you just feel the hope in your heart soar, because those are the words you wanted to hear, and you believed that you wouldn't be able to hear them from him because you haven't been able to sometimes in the past. Or to have the Doctor in the Silence in the Library, that, no, this time, no one dies, I'm going to save everyone. And just that the way that stories like that acknowledge so beautifully that struggle, that this isn't some G-rated it's always going to end happily ever after type of story, that this is, despite all the rubber-faced monsters and fantastic worlds and situations, the fact that they're all flying, that the Doctor's flying around inside a police box, a ship that looks like a police box, this story mirrors that struggle in life of trying to get the happy endings and being denied them, and having to find ways to be okay with salvaging as good an ending as you can for that, that stage in your life, that current conflict, that difficulty, and so that you can then move on to the next episode of your life. But to have, that episodes like that acknowledge that there is, it's stamped down, and it's hard to keep that flame alive, but it is there. Just as humans, we have that flame of hope burning within us, that maybe this time we can have that happy ending. Maybe this time we can make this work the way that we dreamed it would. And have episodes like that where the Doctor fans that spark and goes, yes, this time, not always, but this time I'm going to get that happy ending. This time I'm going to do this. This time everyone lives. That it just replenishes your hope. That gives you a reason to believe that, well, maybe you can get moments like that too. So this video has been long and rambling. I don't know if it's any actionable, and I doubt that I will upload it since I'm in my pajamas and it's so late. I feel like I'm speaking too quietly. But I just wanted to try to focus on the positives and look at just what a marvel it is. People are able to write stories that, by speaking to their own desires, their own struggles, their challenges, and pouring that out onto the page, they can create something that can also be so beautiful that other people can connect with it in their own unique way. And the writer isn't using artful tricks to evoke this emotion or that emotion. They're just putting it out there and able to create such a wondrous response to move someone to tears of joy. I could only hope that one of my stories will someday possess such a marvelous attribute. But until then, I'll certainly be glad of the stories that I find that do touch me in this way, that speak personally to my hopes and my struggles. And I normally don't say this, but since this has been a video with less narrative substance, and I will ask, because I am curious, what are examples of stories, seen in a book or a movie that moves you to tears in this way, and why? Is it a connection to something in your family, that this was something that was important to a relative, and so when you watch it by yourself, you feel that remembrance of them, and it brings out joy in you at the memory, or a specific scene that makes you feel understood by the movie, and this isn't a challenge that you're having to go through alone, or stories that remind you to stay hopeful, that sometimes happy endings do happen. I would be curious to find out if you would be willing to share something like that. It's very personal, so of course understand if you don't. As always, I hope that this video has been informative, or at the very least, a pleasant diversion. Until next time.